Hi guys, welcome back to the Mina Does Art Stuff YouTube channel. My name is Mina and on this channel we do art stuff. Today I am here with my second video on the Paul Rubens oil pastels, and I've been playing around with them for a little bit. I did a couple of paintings, I guess you call them, with them a little while ago over the last couple of weeks, and I've done a few more this morning just to kind of warm up, and I have a few more thoughts on them that I wanted to share with you. So first of all, you'll notice here that I've got a third set here, and this is actually my Mungyo Artist Soft Oil Pastels. So it's this set, which I did unbox and swatch and everything on this channel earlier, so if I remember I will link that video below, otherwise you can find it on the channel. And I pulled this out because with like the initial couple of paintings that I did with the Paul Rubens, I noticed that whilst there's a lot of colours, I felt like it was really lacking in the greens. Now there's a lot of greens here in the pastel set, the macaron set, but they're all, as the name would suggest, very pastel. And then in the main colour set, you've still got quite a few light greens, and there's only one kind of dark green, which isn't really even all that dark. So I'll just show you here really quickly. These are all the greens that you get in the main set, in the main 48 colour set, and there's only that one dark green, and even then it's quite a blue green. It's not like a proper dark green. And there's lots of lights, and then in the pastel set, like I said, all those greens are fairly light as well. So I was really missing having other options for dark greens. And then I grabbed my Mungyo set and swatched those, and I feel like, and this might just be personal preference here because I do use green a lot in my work, this has a better range of greens for me and what I enjoy doing. So I will be supplementing with the Mungyo pastels in this in today's video. Sorry if my voice sounds a bit hoarse. Not sure what that's about. So yeah, I will be using some of the Mungyo greens probably in today's demo paintings and stuff, just because I feel like there's a better range of them, and I'm not experienced enough with pastels to really figure out or to know how to blend different colors together necessarily to get a good like dark green in the way that I would want. So I'm keeping things simple today, and I'm just gonna use this extra set here. Let me just show you the paintings I've done already. So these are two that I did before. So this is actually the first one I did, and this is on the pastel paper that Paul Rubens sent as well. And so this is really where I started to realise the lack of the range of greens that I wanted. And one of the greens that I really like in this set is one of those pastels that's a bit hard as well, so it's not the easiest to use. And I did this one with more of like an impasto effect, so it's kind of 3D-ish. I'm not sure how well you can see that on the camera. It is fairly 3D, like it's got a lot of surface texture to it, which I quite like. And I have sealed this with a fixative, although because the pastels are on super thick, this one's actually all right. It doesn't sort of smudge onto my hands as I rub it off, but occasionally little crumbs will fall off because, like I said, I've layered it on fairly thick. And the second one was this landscape that I attempted to do, and I really like how this one turned out. It was definitely an interesting experience. Now this whole top section where it's been smoothed out, the fixative has worked really well, like it doesn't smudge at all. But again, down the bottom here with the flowers, it's definitely more of a 3D effect. I'm not sure again how well you can see that, but you can sort of see it there. It's got a fairly 3D effect. And again here there are places where, you know, get little crumbs of the oil pastels falling off because it's gone on quite chunky. But again, like I said, I have sprayed all of this with fixative twice. So and I used the Jackson's own brand pastel fixative. I'll show it to you later if I remember. And it works pretty well on like I said, the smoothed out parts where it's not too thick, but here where it's laid on quite thick, it's been a bit trickier. And then some other ones that I did today. I did this one first, which I absolutely love how this one turned out. It's so cute. It's just an adorable little landscape. And actually what I did with all of these ones I'm going to show you today, I did a background wash in watercolor. So the blue for the sky up here is all watercolor, and the background green at the bottom here is all watercolor as well. Otherwise everything else is the oil pastel. So what I learned from this landscape painting is that it wasn't too hard, but it was definitely a lot more effort to get a nice even layer on the background. So I thought I might try doing a watercolor sort of base layer, as it were, almost like an underpainting, and then layering up the oil pastels on top to give like the overall effect. That was one I did. This one did not turn out how I wanted. I was going for flowers, sort of like poppies. The stems turned out too thick. I think what it is, because I'm not really used to using oil pastels yet, or I'm not super proficient at it, it's hard for me to get the details, and so doing things on a small scale is a lot harder for me to do if it's not going to be like super abstract like this one. So yeah, this one didn't really turn out the way I'd had in my mind, but I might try this scale on try this again on a larger scale using a larger piece of paper. I feel like that might be more beneficial for what I'm going for. Then again, another sort of abstract-y, landscapey idea, and I didn't really smooth out the sky or anything. I kind of wanted to leave all that texture in there. Again, the background was painted with watercolor, and this is on my Clairefontaine mixed media paint on paper. The two previously that I showed you, these are on Arteza watercolor postcards. I'm not really a huge fan of this paper for watercolor, so I'm trying to find other ways to use it up, and I actually really liked it for this. And again, like I said, kind of like an abstract-y landscape. You've got sky, bit of like sunlight. Actually, I'm not entirely sure why I did that yellow up there, so let's just pretend like it's supposed to be something. So like a grassy hill, and then a field of flowers at the front sort of thing. Again, I kind of like it like you see it now, without the top part, without that yellow bit at the top, kind of like there. I quite like that. Not a fan of that top part at all. And then finally another little landscapey one. Kind of turned out okay, but I'm a bigger fan of this first one that I did, ironically. I actually really love how this one turned out compared to all of the others. But these were also quite fun. So and I still need to spray these obviously because I just did these today. I haven't sprayed them with fixative yet. I do plan to do that. The other thing that I figured out, and I have been doing with the paintings I did today, is after I finish each one, I put a sheet of paper, well, this is really thin paper, over the top just to smush it down. You can also use tracing paper. I just haven't been able to find my tracing paper today, so I'm using this thin paper instead. Ooh. Another trick that I learned from Lindsay, who is the Frugal Crafter here on YouTube, is to have a cloth and have some alcohol on it. So I use this isopropyl rubbing alcohol. I actually bought this for something else, but I have it now, so I used it. Just put a little bit on this towel, and you can see here, it's just easy. You can either clean your fingers off with it, or if you're using tools, like I have these silicone tools, I can just wipe them off, and the alcohol helps get the oil pastel off your fingers and your tools. So that was helpful. And yeah, I was trying to avoid having like super thick 3D-ish type effects in this bottom section here, which was the main reason I was doing the whatchamacallit, the paper pressing, squishing, there we go, the squishing of the oil pastels, kind of really sort of like sink it into the paper a little bit. It still has a bit of a 3D effect, but it's not going to be as bad as some of the other ones, so it will hopefully have a better finish once it's been sprayed. Okay, so in terms of what we're going to do today, let me just scooch everything out of the way, get set up properly. Oh, so in terms of other tools that I'll be using today, I have, like I said, a couple of these silicone tipped tools. They're different shapes. I have this tortillon. I have others as well that I can pull if I want to use those. And I have a palette knife that I've pulled out from the set that Paul Rubens, or I say Paul Rubens, Lightwish EU are the company that actually sent me this. They're the distributor for Paul Rubens in Europe. So they sent me this, a set of palette knives as well, so I might use some of this for some effects. I don't know, I haven't decided yet. The only other thing that I've used is a hairdryer, and that's because it's actually fairly cold here in my house today in the UK. It's a fairly chilly day, and some of the oil pastels are very hard because it's quite cold. So I've been warming them up a little bit with the hairdryer, which allows them to go on a bit smoother, which is just a general trick that you can do anyway. So I thought for today, the first thing we're going to do, we're just going to have fun with some abstract mark making. Nothing too elaborate. So as you can see, I have this sheet of Clairefontaine mixed media paper. So this one's actually a different version of the one I showed you before. So this one actually has some texture to the paper, whereas the other one was a lot smoother. So hopefully you can see that texture on this paper. So I used this one for this. And I just did a couple of like washes of colour randomly on the paper, and now I thought we'd add some more texture to it with some oil pastels. So I'm going to pick out a few colours. I'm going to stick with this colour palette of blues and purples. Almost said blues and greens, blues and purples. Right, so let's get a couple of purples out. That's a nice blue, and that one. I'm just going by eye, I'm not really looking at names. It's like a purpley blue, maybe another purple. Which was this? Magenta. I know I just said I wasn't going to look at colour names, but just wanted to double check I was picking a colour I actually wanted. I'm just going to randomly start making marks. It's almost easier to do this with your eyes closed, just so that it's truly like random. Okay, so this one's feeling quite hard, so I'm just going to soften it up with a bit of a hairdryer. Right, hopefully that will have softened up a little bit. Yeah, it's going down a lot smoother now. Now I don't want to smooth this down too much with tools and things, but I will, because I kind of want to keep some of that texture, but I will smooth down some of these like lumpier bits. Okay, last thing I'm going to do, just cover it with a piece of thin paper. Give it a proper little smush. And actually what I do sometimes is also blitz it with a hairdryer for a bit. And it just helps to soften up the pastels a little bit, so again it will smoothen down a bit. Quite like that pattern on the paper. So you see it just removes some of the excess pastel, so it's not just gonna sit on top and not, and it's not perfectly smoothed in, but it still has that, and it still has its texture, which is great, just what I wanted. Now I'm going to peel off the tape to see what we are left with. I'm actually pretty impressed by how well this tape is coming off on this paper. This tape has been on this paper for weeks at this point. I did the prep part of this a while ago, and it's just taken me a while to sit down and actually record the video. So yeah, that's how these have turned out. I'm really quite happy with that. Just fun little abstract textural pieces. And then once I've sprayed and finished these, I'll probably cut it up and then I can turn them into little cards, and I think they'd be quite cute. So that's painting number 1. And then the second one we're going to do is this one. It's a bit similar to one of the other landscapes I showed you, and I've actually done a watercolour painting of this that I quite like, but I like it too much to want to like potentially mess it up with the oil pastels, because I'm not sure if I'm going to like the finished result or not. So I kind of repainted it loosely. I actually still prefer the original to this, so I don't mind too much about going in with some oil pastels now. And we'll see how this one turns out. I want to pick out some different colours. Pastels selected. I don't know if I'll use all of these, but I wanted to have some options. We'll start at the top. I'll clean up some of this. And this again is on that same textured mixed media Clairefontaine paper that I showed you before, so you can see all that texture show up. The clouds on the top here. And the only reason I'm not really talking about what I'm doing is because I have no freaking clue what I'm doing. I'm just kind of winging it at this point and just seeing what I come up with. I have no real plans or there's a bit of yellow in that. Scrape that off. That's the good thing about oil pastels as well, is like if you do make a bit of a mistake and there's like a colour there that you don't want, you can kind of just scrape it off with a tool. Use like a toothpick if you don't have one of these silicone tools. Okay, that's the mountains. Doesn't look too bad. Okay, so let's move down, move on to the tree line. I will say the Paul Rubens ones are great if you want lots of texture in your pastels. The Mungyo ones are a little bit smoother, and so they're, in some of the colours anyway, they're easier to handle than the Paul Rubens. So, like I said, some of the Paul Rubens ones are a bit chunkier for some reason. Well, not chunky is not the right word. It's like, it's just not as smooth. It comes off the pastel a little bit thicker, which actually is really nice when you're doing something really abstract and you want all that sort of like impasto style texture, but that's not always what you're going for. and so it can be a little bit hard to get the smoother stuff. And I also think the fact that my house is quite cold today is definitely not helping the situation at all, not one bit. Alright, so let's do some of these hills. So this one's the Paul Rubens now. You can just sort of see how it's a bit more textury. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually break the black oil pastel just so I can get a sharp edge. So one thing I've been struggling with the pastels is figuring out how to get a sharp edge for some detail stuff. So the only thing I can think of is to break it. Create a bit of an edge. So if anyone has any advice or suggestions on the best way to get or create details with oil pastels, please let me know, because I'm not entirely sure this is the best way. Maybe it's the only way to do it, but that's the one thing I'm really struggling with this medium, is figuring out how to. Well, that's supposed to be a fence, but I have no idea what that's what that looks like. It does not look like a fence to me, but we'll see. Yeah, I'm really struggling to figure out how to get details, and I've been following some oil pastel artists on Instagram, and I'm just amazed at the level of detail that they can get in their work, and so I know it's possible, but I just have no idea how to achieve it myself. And there's not a ton on YouTube. There's not a lot of like oil pastel tutorials or videos, and at least not many that I've found. I know Lindsay of the Frugal Crafter, again, she's got quite a few oil pastel videos on her channel. She does all sorts of different medias, but she mainly focuses on watercolour. If you're not following her, then why aren't you? You should go follow her. She's an amazing resource full of tons of really useful information. And I am on Skillshare, and I've looked at some oil pastel videos there as well, but they're just not, it's not really the sort of thing I'm looking for, and I'm still struggling to figure out how best to create certain effects and stuff. And I've watched all the videos on like the different techniques to use with oil pastels and stuff like that, and it's just not helping. It's not the information I'm looking for. It's like I want information on like how to create details and how to do small details. Like, is that just not possible? Do I just have to do oil pastels on a much larger scale to be able to achieve any kind of detail in the work? Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that is the way it is, and I just haven't figured that out yet. So yeah, any advice regarding that would be greatly appreciated. So you see with these, especially this colour, it's annoying because I love this colour a lot. It's beautiful yellow, but you kind of have to do this dab and roll motion to kind of get a nice chunk of colour onto the paper. So I press, because if I just do that, like, I don't get much colour, but if I press and then kind of roll it off, it sort of takes a little chunk of paint, a chunk of the oil pastel off and onto the paper, which is more in line with what I was hoping for. Okay, then some lighter colours in there. That's pretty good. I'm just going to go over and smush down some of these really 3D parts. Just want them to be smoothed down just a smidge. Let's see how this looks. It actually turned out alright. And so that's that one finished, and I just wanted to, I went and grabbed really quickly and wanted to show you this was the original watercolour version that I did. That even though I think this one now looks a bit better with the oil pastel than the original one I'd done, but I do still quite like this on its own. But I like how there's actually more flowers in this one. I kind of wish that the flower field was a little bit higher, a little bit higher in scale. But yeah, so it's just interesting to see the differences. And like I said, this one had an underpainting of watercolour. And so these were the two we did on camera, and then along with some of the others that I'd done. It's been a really fun exploration with these oil pastels. I definitely want to keep practicing with them and hopefully improve over time. But yeah, let me know what you think. Have you tried oil pastels? What do you think of them? Have they been tricky to learn? Have you enjoyed the learning process? Any advice? Like I said, any video recommendations or artists to follow or tutorials or classes, things like that, please do let me know, because I would love to check them out. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please give this video a thumbs up. I will have links to the pastels that I've used, both the Paul Rubens and the Mungyo, and if I remember, to the different paper types that I've used as well. If I forget, please let me know in the comments and I will go ahead and add those links for you. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed what you saw. Alright, thank you so much everyone. See you next time. Bye!